All right, hello zoology people. Here to discuss turtles, right? We get into a really neat topic. I'm excited. Let me get over here into our discussion. So, I get to lecture on all kinds of stuff. It's really hard to get motivated sometimes to talk about glycolysis, the electron transport chain, and from 1306 stuff. But when it comes to talking about zoology and particularly reptilia, turtles, I like this topic. I get excited. So um, ready for a good discussion here. So as we continue into our turtles, our testudine groups, I do want you to remember all that leads up to this point. So they are reptiles. They are amniotes, right? They have the amniotic egg. They are poikilotherms. Their temperature is, their body temperature is dependent on ectothermic heat absorption. They have a variable metabolism. So all that still applies to our turtles. And I like to start off here with a lot of cool species, but I like to start off with the sea turtles, right? Just if you get to work with sea turtles, you get to be in some really neat habitats. It's a tough day's work going out and swimming in with these cool reptiles, right? So put you in the mindset of the habitat of some of these turtles, right? Not all of them live in the saltwater environment, but again, nice way to start off our discussion here. So the testudines, right, which includes all of the extant and extinct turtles. These are mistakenly, and I like the way the book describes it, they're often used inappropriately to represent basal amniotes. So in English, a lot of the turtles are always and often thought of as very primitive, lowly reptiles, right? And if you have any experience with them at all, you quickly find out, like, man, they are intelligent. They learn. They have this sort of personality to them. So they're not as basal as what we might think, right? They are a sister lineage to the archosaurs, to the birds, to the crocodilians. So yes, they are reptiles, but they're a very different branch off of those, right? Off of the reptiles. So they are among the most derived of the vertebrates. So again, reptilians, but very distinct than lizards and snakes. So cool group, right? And we have the terrestrial forms, the little box turtles, the large tortoises, river species, the sliders. We have our oceanic sea turtles. So lots of variation within this turtle group here. So again, the natural habitat of a sea turtle, right? That's kind of what they're going to be seen as if you were to snorkel and kind of come across these. One thing that you notice, again, the shell, that's very distinctive to this group of reptilians. So getting into some lab stuff, but I'll try to present it here. I'm going to use some of this vocabulary. So when we look at the shell, we look at two halves, right? The top half and then the bottom half. So the top half being called the carapace, the top view. So you're looking dorsally, you're looking from the top view, that is that turtle's carapace. And the different scutes, these different pieces of the shell have specific names, right? Nuchal, pertaining to the neck, the central scutes, all along the center of the shell, of the carapace, the costals. Think of costal in Spanish, means like pertaining to the ribs, marginals on the edge, and then the supracaudals around the tail, above the tail. That's the top view, right? If we take the little turtle and turn it on its back, so you're looking now at the ventral, at the belly, we have the plastron. We call this the plastron. And it's kind of symmetrical. We have our pectorals, our abdominals, the anal plates there. Kind of hard to see in this, in this picture here. There's going to be some big distinctions between a male plastron and a female plastron, right? So the female plastron is typically very straight. It's just flat. In a female, these gular and intergular scutes are small, right? They're They're very reduced. In the males, a lot of times the gular scutes are going to be enlarged, and we have a very big extension. They're going to use that for fighting and for trying to toss the other competing male on its back. In the males, you have in the abdominals and the femorals, you have a big concavity, right? It's like a kind of bowl shape going into the abdomen of the turtle. And again, this is for the idea of the turtle male actually being able to mount the female and not slide off. So the carapace of the female is round, so the male plastron is kind of concave to be able to balance and sit on the female. So I don't know if I have really good pictures of that, but lots of detail can be distinguished on the shell, and we can externally be able to sex the turtle, the male or female, based on some plastron characteristics. So when we get into turtles, there's, depending on the authority, the taxonomical authority, there's 13 to about 14 or 15 families, about 300 and almost 350 extant species. Lots of weird names here, right? So the Chelidae, you see it's got like that little white line. Some people think this is one group. Some people think it should be split up into two. The Trionychidae, the Trionyx, the flat-shelled turtles, same thing. These are our little river turtles. Sea turtles, some of the box turtles down here. So lots of different variation amongst these different turtles, but they all have, again, the same basic characteristics of what you know of as a turtle. There's a box turtle here, right? Just some turtle diversity. This is the most common pet shop turtle that you've probably seen. We call these red-eared sliders. See that little red patch? These little green stripes. You find these in the pet shops. You go to Escarate, you go to, pretty much anybody here in El Paso is trying to sell little baby turtles. It's probably a red-eared slider. They do occur naturally in rivers and lakes in other parts of the state. Country, a little bit farther east. Here we have a snapping turtle in two types. Again, a smaller common snapping turtle, and then the larger alligator snapping turtles. Real neat food attracting modification that they have. Here we have different species of baby sea turtles. Again, the leatherback, green, looks like a hawksbill there. So different variations of sea turtles. And again, another example of a sea turtle swimming out in its habitat there. So I mentioned the lure, the unique feeding strategy of these snapping and alligator snapping turtles, right? These are big turtles. They live in very murky water, slow-moving, stagnant ponds. And basically what they do, instead of swimming around this dirty, murky water, they try to attract predators to them. So they'll sit there with their mouth open in this dirty, murky water, and they'll use their little tongue, this sort of bifurcated tongue, and they'll wiggle the little tongue, looks like a little worm. They wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until something swims by, analyzes, thinks, hey, that's a free meal. Gets close, and the snapper then will slam shut, and that's the way they capture their prey. So neat strategy, saves a lot of energy. By attracting prey to them instead of moving their heavy bodies around the environment. This is an example of a common box turtle, or what we call ornate box turtle, desert ornate box turtle that we have here in El Paso. If you live anywhere, let's say Montana, going out east, Montana Vista area, it can be a little bit common out there after the rains. You drive out past Hueco tanks, out further east, 62-180, after a big rain, you can find these on the road. They're neat. They're neat little guys. They live here in the desert. You don't see them year round. They'll come up, they'll feed, they'll do what they need to do, they mate, and then they'll kind of burrow back down. So a lot of people will be surprised. They just kind of appear in the yard, right? So they may have been in the yard, they're burrowed. Maybe somebody bought some land, built a house there. And then months later, it rains, and then these things kind of come up into the yard. So neat little guys, right? They call them box turtles because they can actually seal, they close, they have a very flexible plastron that they can seal up to conserve moisture and to more fully protect themselves from predators. This is one of the largest turtle species, right? This is the leatherback. So they don't have that very, strongly, trying to think of an easy way to explain the carapace. They don't have the regular carapace that most other turtles have. They have these sort of osteoderms on these ridges, but not a complete carapace. So these are specialists of jellyfish and other creatures that are very slimy and full of stings and maybe potentially slippery. So this is the inside of their mouth. Looks pretty gruesome, right? But that helps them to capture their prey and basically not allow it. Once it goes in, it's not going to come out easily in this aquatic environment. They're quite large, right? It gives you an idea of the size, right? These are looks like a big monster truck tire track or something, right? But that's some of these large turtles that are kind of moving onto the land to mate, or I should say they mate in the ocean, they come onto land to lay the eggs, the females, and they go back. So showing you the size reference, right? So that's that leatherback, and that's a big turtle, about 1,100 pounds. So that's a big turtle. There's a human, 5'8" human, and that's the size of that leatherback. Loggerhead, about 4'1", green turtle, about 4 feet, flatback, about 3.2, hawksbill, about 2.9, and then the little Ridley turtles, 2.5 feet. So again, just showing you some extant forms, and then here we have it in an extinct form. Can you imagine this beast, right, swimming around the ocean? So it's known from the fossil record, but we call that Archelon, about 7 foot long shell, almost 5,000 pounds. That's a beast, right? That's a huge turtle. I'd love to see that thing swimming around in the ocean, right? But just showing you some of the size comparisons there. And just because I love this environment, I love to be in their environment, right? Some more pictures of sea turtles in their natural habitat. Some really good photography. Again, that's what they're adapted to, right? They literally fly in that aquatic environment, right? They're very agile in the water. We've touched upon this a little bit, looking at the shell anatomy, right? So, we have the carapace, the scutes, the different plastrons. Very easy to tell what's happening on the outside, right? But what a lot of people don't understand is that the shell is basically part of their body, right? The turtle can't crawl out of the shell. The actual vertebrae are fused to the inside lining of the carapace, and basically the ribs are attached, minimized ribs are attached also to the inside of that shell. So it's a part of them, right? They can't be removed without literally killing the turtle. So very unique body form that we don't see anywhere else in any type of vertebrate species. So that shell is fundamentally a part of that turtle. So if we're looking within, a very unique modification as well, the position of the lungs, right? So lungs are dorsal, and the lungs basically are aerated. They're ventilated by pressure changes in the digestive system. So it's kind of weird, right? It'd be like us, having to shift around the intestines and the stomach to provide space for inhalation, and then compressing back on the belly to force exhalation. So it's a very different system than what we are used to, right? Also, they are very vulnerable because of the position of the lung on that inflexible shell. If for whatever reason a turtle gets pushed on his back for a significant amount of time, they can literally suffocate, right? All the heavy visceral mass, the weight of the intestines and the liver, the gallbladder, all that, will literally compress the lung, and the lung is not able to ventilate. Right? So I talk about this before. When two males are battling, that's the goal. If I'm a male and I have other competitors in my area, my goal is to get rid of them, right? And it seems kind of harsh, but if I can kind of maneuver and kind of topple them over on their back, two negative things can happen, right? One, their lungs get compressed where they can't breathe. And two, if they can't right themselves, they're absorbing all that heat, and their body temperature can elevate too rapidly as well. They can overheat, or they can basically asphyxiate. They can die of lack of oxygen. So just again, part of their physiology, because of that very inflexible shell and the position of those lungs. Right? So you can see where the trachea, right? The trachea doesn't come downwards. The trachea loops up. Trachea loops up to each lung. So unique modification for respiration. So a little bit of anatomy, physiology. Now we get into some behavior, some natural history of turtles, right? So we've talked about amphibian reproduction. It's similar, right? We're going to have that same idea of the male and the female. We do have now internal fertilization. And we have this sort of different type of sex determination, right? So they found each other out in the ocean. They found each other in the lake, in the pond. We have the mating process, right? So in most species, sex is genetically determined, right? The moment of conception for you, for me, for your brothers, your sisters, once that sperm fertilizes the egg, for humans, we have that X and Y chromosome, and our sex is genetically determined from that point. During development, we have hormonal regulation, we have steroidal regulation, we have testosterone, we have estrogen that helps to carry out that genetic sex determination plan, right? For many turtles and for a few other species as well, a few other groups, classes, their sex the sex is not dependent on genetics. Temperature is what determines what sex the little hatchlings will be. So we have temperature dependent sex determination. There's 3 types, 1A, 1B, and 2. I'm not going to get into all the details of these, but if we go back here and look at this nesting burrow here, right? So the female's gravid, full of eggs. She crawls onto the beach, digs a deep hole, and drops the eggs. So because of the depth, the deeper they are, the cooler the temperature will be. The ones that are up closer to the surface are absorbing more heat from the surface of the sand and kind of diffuses them to the ground. So during the incubation process, we have warmer on the top and cooler down below. So that's going to then give us a mixture of temperatures, and it's going to then give us a roughly equal sex ratio of males to females. Now it determines 1A, 1B, whether or not the hotter ones turn into males or the hotter ones turn into females. In some situations, like with 2, we have the really, really hot that become male, and then the really, really, really cold also that become the same sex. They become the same sex at the 2 extremes, and in the middle, they become the different sex, right? So just unique amongst turtles. Their temperature in which they incubate determines what sex they will be. And if everything is done properly, we should have an equal male to female ratio of hatchlings. A lot of trial and error has kind of had to happen for us to learn this, right? If we look at the idea of, what should I say? We look at the idea of humans trying to help, right? Humans trying to make a positive impact on the health, on the survivability of these species. A lot of times the eggs were laid in the ground. We didn't want predators to come get them, so they were dug up and put in sort of these artificial incubators, all in the same sort of level, same temperature. So what happened, a lot was the same sex was being produced. So we had years and years and years of producing males. So all of these turtles were released back, and people were wondering, well, man, where are all the females, right? Are they getting eaten? Are they not surviving out in nature? Well, no, they were not being produced because of this type of temperature dependent sex determination. So the history of our knowledge went through some bumps and some trial and error that instead of us helping the species, we actually maybe hurt them in these aspects there. So, but with good hearts, having the wrong impact, the negative impact on their survivability. Just an example here, little baby albino turtle there. So kind of in a clockwise fashion, this is what we would see, right? The reproductive process. So the females become gravid. The females then have to climb very, I'm gonna say inefficiently. They're great for swimming. They're very bulky. They're not very well adapted to walking on land. Right? They don't have legs. They have flippers. They have these fins. So they do kind of struggle a bit to crawl onto dry land. They can't lay the eggs in the water. They have to lay the eggs on the sand here. They lay the eggs. Female digs a hole, lays the eggs, sort of pats the ground back down, and then moves back into the water. And then it's up to the sun, the heat to incubate the eggs. The little eggs hatch, and then the little babies have to rush back to the ocean. So successful reproduction, right? The little baby hatchling hatched and working its way back to the ocean. There's a lot of really, amazing phenomenon that happens on planet Earth, but I think that this is one of those. It falls under this category. We say this is the arribada, right? Arriba, to go on, to go up, right? So it happens in multiple parts of the world. We have arribadas that happen in India, parts of Africa. This is the one I'm going to focus on Costa Rica, right, in the New World. So pertains to the olive ridley sea turtles, right? And the arribada is a mass mating event. So normally it's a very secretive thing, right? So a lone female will secretively crawl onto the beach at night, lay the eggs, and go back into the water. Nobody knows, nobody sees. It's a very secretive process, right? They're vulnerable at this point. The babies, the eggs are vulnerable at this point. Well, these arribadas are quite unique because somehow there's this synchronization. It's like a spring break, right? College students gone wild, they aggregate at the beach. It's this big mating sort of process that happens. And then the females all at once kind of come onto the shore. So you'll have hundreds, if not thousands of females that rush onto this little, stretch of beach. They lay their eggs and they go back. So it's just this massive amount of eggs deposited in one area in one time, right? And a lot of details with the moon and the time of the year that happened, the rainy season. But just showing you some of the places if you want to experience this. This is where you'd have to go, sort of the west coast of Costa Rica. There's also Tortuguero on the east coast of Costa Rica that you can experience this, different species, but this is the one that's most common, the olive ridley, that does these arribadas there. So again, this becomes almost overwhelming, and it gets almost to the point where there's not space. One turtle lays the eggs, and another turtle comes and starts digging her hole to lay her eggs, and she's dumping the prior eggs out, right? So this, again, is an evolutionary question maybe, right? So why? What's the strategy of the turtles to do this, where one turtle can disrupt the other turtle, right? Is it to give their kids a better chance for survival? Is it to overwhelm predators? Because again, this would attract a lot of predators in the area. So again, interesting phenomenon again that happens with these olive ridley turtles, arribadas. Another thing, once the eggs hatch, there is this imprintation that happens, and we go back a little bit to turtles that we said were related to the archosaurians, to the birds. If you know something about homing pigeons, we can take them anywhere and then release them, and they go back to their same location. Right? They can navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. Right, so the Earth has this magnetic field that we have polarity: the North Pole, the South Pole. If you know a compass, if you have a compass that you used in the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, and you know where north is always at. Well, turtles have that same capacity, and they probably invented it first before birds, right? But they're able to know their global position. They have this global positioning system sort of ingrained in their mind, and they can travel from one continent to the other. They can travel, years, right? So these little baby turtles that hatch in Costa Rica, they'll travel the oceans for about 50 years till they become reproductive. And after those 50 years, they go back to that same beach in which they were born. So they imprint to within, feet sometimes of where they were born. It's quite amazing how they do that. So again, this magnetic field navigation that I personally don't understand all the physics behind it. But hey, I'm not as smart as a sea turtle, right? So they do this. They know how to navigate in this underwater environment. They use magnetic field. I'm sure they use landmarks and things like that underwater. But this is unique and interesting, and it can have a negative aspect as well that I'll cover later. So really cool stuff on sea turtles. I could go on and on about sea turtles, but I do want to introduce now the terrestrial tortoises, right? And these are neat too, right? The sulcata tortoises or desert tortoises that we have here in the United States, in Arizona. There's a lot of land tortoises. And basically these things get big. These sulcata tortoises, the African spur-thighed tortoise. Here's just a picture I stole from the internet. It's a young girl that got a little baby tortoise. Oh, so cute, right? So the girl aged, and you can see her turtle aged, and it will continue aging for 150 years, 200 years maybe. They get large, right? They get large and they grow fast. And man, they are like bulldozers. They make a mess of their habitat. They're interesting, right? So I don't know if I'll be able to bring in mine and kind of put them here on the camera. They make a mess. They pee everywhere. They poop everywhere when you handle them like that. But if I can, I'll try. If not, maybe I'll get some videos of them and their habitat out there. But sulcatas. I thought this was just a neat picture. So we have a 5-day-old baby and the 140-year-old adult, basically, right? So it gives you a size reference. It went from that to that in 140 years, right? And again, it looks pretty healthy for 140 years. Able to walk around, move. And again, these are long-lived organisms. So the ones I have, I know my grandkids are going to end up taking care of them when I'm gone, right? So they live a long time. So these tortoises. Now, turtles are cool, right? They're neat species, but they do have some complications, right? So one, we know, we've heard this with the fish, and we know about problems with the ocean, lots of pollution going on, water quality is getting bad, a lot of just chemicals that are non-conducive to life, lots of trash going onto the ocean, loss of pristine nesting beaches, right? So the beach is a neat place to go, right? We don't have a beach in El Paso, but a lot of people like to go get in the ocean. They swarm to the beaches, prime real estate. So lots of money is invested in these big resorts. development of, big fancy places on the beach. But what if you were a little baby turtle that was born on this beach 50 years ago? You return back expecting this nice, pristine environment, and you find it's completely crammed with people, right? So these turtles are so ingrained and so stubborn sometimes, they don't try to find other places. Say, no, damn it, I was born right there, and my kids are going to be born right there. And they continue to go. And again, it's not the best place to lay the egg. Too many disruptions, too many things can happen to the eggs. It's just, again, problems that they're facing. Another problem that they're having, multiple species are having these types of, we call papillomatosis. So these are the turtle herpes, basically. You can see all these growths. It's a viral infection that they have, and again, makes it unhealthy, affects their vision, affects the way that they navigate through the water. So not a lot of optimistic sort of outlook that I have for a lot of these turtles, which is sad. But normally you see turtles, we mentioned, eat a lot of jellyfish. So eating a jellyfish, top left, eating the jellyfish, top left. And these are eating trash bags because they kind of look like jellyfish. So again, you're like, no, don't eat that, because they eat it, they can't digest it, it clogs up their digestive system. So again, a lot of turtles are just doing badly because of the types of junk they're eating in their diet. They're not supposed to be eating this. They don't have the digestive system to digest this. It'd be like if you just eat, plastic bags for lunch and dinner. It's just something that doesn't do well for your body, right? Lack of nutrition, blockage of the gastrointestinal tract. So lots of bad stuff happening there. So with that, again, this video is getting a little bit long, so let me go ahead and stop it here. But I think this is a good introduction to turtles. You get to, you know a little bit of now some vocabulary, some anatomy, some reproductive biology, some environmental issues that they're facing, some challenges. So I leave you with these, right? One of my favorite characters as a kid were the Ninja Turtles. Michelangelo was always my favorite. But looking at these little guys here, and just really neat species, right? This group, the Testudines, the turtles. So with that, we'll call it a lecture. I'll upload these, and hopefully tomorrow, I'm hoping I'll try to get in the lizards and snakes up. Yeah. All right. So y'all have a great one.